So here we have the session from the last video where all of the instruments have their own unique space in the stereo field and they are balanced with the faders. They also have EQ on every track. I want to point out a couple more things. Number one, the bass and the violin are in the same place in the stereo field, and that's okay because the bass is very low and the violin is very high, so they're not going to conflict in our ears. I also want to point out the EQ curves that I've put in to these tracks. Notice how they are not crazy, huge, or enormous changes to the sound, just subtle sculpting here and there. The goal of the EQ is to provide extra clarity to the sound, to help the tracks fit together like puzzle pieces, and to correct any problems. Remember the 3 C's of EQ: corrective, cohesive, and creative. Now, we're not doing too much creative EQ in this session, but it's always a possibility. Okay, so let's add reverb to this session. I'm going to go to my track menu and choose New. Then I'm going to make a stereo aux input track, and I'm going to call it Reverb. So the first thing I'm going to do on this track is solo safe it by command clicking on the solo button or control clicking on a Windows machine. Next, I'm going to put the reverb plugin in the first insert. I'm going to go to plugin reverb and I'm going to choose air reverb. I'm going to make sure my mix knob is at 100% because it's on the return track. Next, I'm going to add sends to each of the tracks. So I'm going to go to send A on my drums, go to track, reverb. And I'm going to do that for every track. Next, I'm going to command click or control click on the arrow next to the sends to show my expanded sends. And now I can blend the reverb into the session track by track, just like I did with the main volume faders here for the volume level. So now that you can see your expanded sends, you can blend reverb into the session track by track, similar to the way you balanced with the main faders down below. Let's try it. I'm going to add reverb to the drums, but just a touch. You want to be careful adding reverb and other time-based effects to drums because if you add too much, it can obscure the beat and make the whole session lose a lot of energy. The same thing is true with the bass and the tuba. Because they are low instruments, a little bit of reverb will go a long way. If you add too much, you'll make it muddy and unintelligible. Okay, let's go with the piano. Now the piano and the guitar here, we can feel free to add a lot more reverb because of the nature of their parts. They're kind of haunting. And finally, the violin, the lead instrument. I find this violin tone to be kind of harsh, so a reverb is going to really help cut that harshness down. And just make it a much wider sound. Now I'm going to go back through and rebalance the tracks in the context of the whole session. So we just need to readjust these faders. Might bring the reverb on the drums down a little bit. So, there's no exact science to it. It's more of an art where you're using your ear to blend and balance. Everybody's tastes will be slightly different, but this is the basic way you do that. Now, the last thing we're going to do, and this is so you can turn your work in, is after you add the EQ and the reverb and you do your rebalancing, is you need to bounce the session and take a screenshot. So I need a screenshot of your edit window and your mix window with the reverb plugin. So I'm going to take a screenshot of the mix window with the reverb plugin first. On a Mac, it's fairly simple. It's Shift Command 3. On a Windows computer, you can use the snipping tool, or there are third-party plugins available for you to take a screenshot. What is not so helpful is if you take a screenshot, if you take a picture with your phone of the screen, I find that to be not that great. So if you can take a screenshot, please do so. I'm going to go back to my edit window, and I'm going to take a screenshot of that. And then I'm going to make sure I'm at the beginning of the session. I'm going to go to File, Bounce to Disk, and I'm going to create an MP3 here. Now, one other point, this file format box, if you have been submitting multiple mono files, please don't. Change that to interleaved so it's one file with the left and right channels together. You're going to name your file. I'm going to name mine Mix1 Ryan Van Bibber. And I'm going to make sure the offline box is checked. And I hit bounce, and it already exists from an earlier demonstration. So I'll just go ahead and overwrite that. So now we've taken screenshots, we've bounced the session, you can email those to me, and you have completed the project. Congratulations.